When I think about the ice storm, one of the things that is stuck in my mind is the fact that so many people were calling our TV station asking for help. They were without power. They didn't have the resources that they needed.
It was definitely a storm that I will never forget.
And I just kept hearing ice and trees popping, and it was just a different experience.
I'm First Alert Chief Meteorologist Marcus Walter, and I'm standing outside of our TV station, KNOE, on a day where we've seen temperatures reach into the mid-90s, and it's been hot, it's been humid as well. But 6 months ago, we dealt with one of the most impactful ice storms to ever impact the Arctic. This storm led to hundreds of thousands of people being without power for several days. And it was also a time when temperatures dropped below freezing, not only during the daytime, but also at night, making it very tough to survive without electricity. Again, it was the most impactful, one of the most impactful ice storms to ever impact the Arctic. And so myself and members of the KNOE First Alert Weather Team wanted to talk about that storm, how it developed, what we were seeing before things transpired, what we saw during the event, and what we saw after the event.
So a week out from the storm arriving or impacting the Arctic, we look at long-range models. We have the GFS and the Euro model, which are models that we use to forecast, and it gives us just a general idea of what we could be seeing a week out. And honestly, the fact that we were already a week out seeing a potential winter storm on both models kind of had our eyebrows raising. We were just wondering like, okay, well, this is something to, keep an eye on.
I was working the Sunday before, and that's when all the models started showing ice and things, but they just weren't agreeing. So some models were saying temperatures in the 60s, others were taking temperatures down to the 40s, so it just wasn't the right setup for ice. So on Sunday I actually went with rain and temperatures in the 60s, and then things changed throughout the week to focus more so on the ice impacts and also the below freezing temperatures.
We knew something was coming. I had been watching the models, and over the last couple of weeks leading up to the ice storm, we saw a series of opportunities where cold air would get close and then it would retreat. And then it'll get close again and then it would retreat. So I knew as a meteorologist, okay, at some point this cold air is going to reach us, and it's a question as to whether or not the cold air will match up with moisture to bring us either snow, sleet, freezing rain, or any of those mentioned.
That's the other thing. We did not have a clear idea of what type of wintry weather that we would be seeing, whether it would be freezing rain, sleet, mix of snow. But once we got in about, we'll say 2 to 3 days out from the event, that's when our short range or higher resolution models started to pick up on this system, and they both were in pretty decent agreement with us seeing a ice storm.
One of the things I remember the most about the ice storm event is not necessarily the ice, it's the fact that so many people needed help and so many people were without power. I know our local communities here in Ouachita Parish, they were without power. We know many of our rural communities were without power, and it made for very tough conditions, especially with the temperatures going below freezing several nights in a row. During the event, thinking about what not only our community was going through, but also thinking about what our station staff was going through was something that definitely was on my mind. Many of our staffers ended up sleeping at the TV station because there were icy roads, it wasn't safe to travel, and some of our staffers were without power as well, so their best option was to stay at the TV station.
I knew if there was any type of icing that I was probably going to be stuck here, so I brought a bag, and I actually had to sleep up here for a night because the roads were so iced over. And then as I was sleeping in somebody's office, I woke up and I just kept hearing ice and trees popping, and it was just a different experience because in 2021 I didn't really hear any like trees popping like that, but like trees were crashing all around, and it was just loud outside.
I mean, we had all hands on deck with this storm. Everyone, from reporters to even our sports guys, they were out there shooting footage, doing whatever we could do to show you guys what we are dealing with across the arc limits.
And thinking about how many hours our colleagues put in to cover this storm, I have immense appreciation for them. You know, it's very hard sometimes when you're covering an emergency and then you have to think about, well, what about me? What about the things that I need? I can't go home. I can't use my shower like I usually do. I can't eat my dinner at home like I usually do. So I definitely give a lot of credit to our news director, to our assistant news directors, to all of our staffers, even our GM for helping to really helping to manage the situation because it was tough not only for those of us here at KNOE, but for really everyone in the community.
We end up having ice covering much of the region. I know specifically in Washita Parish was actually the hardest hit from this ice storm. So
I think it's just how much ice we saw. Like, I wasn't expecting to see that much ice fall so quickly because, like I said, in the middle of the night when I woke up, I just heard boo-koodles of ice falling, and I went out the next day and it was everywhere. And then it just lasted so long. I know, like, a week after I went out to Calhoun and they still had like tons of ice everywhere, and there were just boulders of ice in the parking lots.
the biggest thing was, the power being out for so long. People were calling the station wondering when will my power be back on and things like that, which of course is beyond our control. But I will say, our job is to make sure that the viewers and the people at home are prepared for any inclement weather that can impact you. And we knew that power outages would be one of the things that impacted people, but also the fact that we had trees snapping, as well as not only just the trees snapping, but also some trees fell on cars as well as some homes across the region. And so we saw like a lot of different damage around parts of the arc limits because of this ice storm. But I think the biggest thing was definitely the power being out across many parts of the arc limits.
So as I think about lessons learned from this event, one thing for sure is that we need to make sure no matter what, if there is a big weather event happening, that the community knows as soon as possible. To give them as much time to prepare as possible. And one of the things we didn't necessarily know was whether or not we would have power outage issues. There was a question as to how much freezing rain, how much sleet would happen. We end up seeing more than what we were even forecasting. And so that made for very tough conditions. But I think letting people know as soon as we know what's going on with the weather, what we think the possibilities are, can help them prepare and manage any type of weather situation.